The two-tier justice system in Britain is getting out of control. Villains and criminals who are obsessed with young people are avoiding jail thanks to our judges in our Crown Courts. And we have an update from the Metropolitan Police in London in regards to the scandals of harassing women. Welcome to 2CTV, your global news channel. I'm Maya Tracy, and this is the latest news update, this time from the United Kingdom and the two-tier justice system. Now, we have been covering a lot in recent weeks and months in regards to some of the court cases and the investigations into not just grooming gangs, but just general crime that is on the rise in this kingdom. One of the main issues that we're currently facing is the problem with those who are obsessed with children. And this is obviously, they've got different categories: those who just collect images, videos, those who actually target them in real life. And it's obviously it becomes slightly systemic because some of these people have been recruited in some of our institutions and workplaces. We're going to be talking about one specific case, which was in the Liverpool Crown Court. This man has managed to avoid jail. I mean, again, we can compare this to many other softer cases of so-called crime, especially those who are protesting and shouting at police officers' dogs, for example. But we also have to talk about the Metropolitan Police in London, because Sadiq Khan has recently came to say that there is no problem. Basically, he implied there are no issues when it comes to grooming gangs and things like that. The Metropolitan Police in London is the cleanest police force in the whole world, apparently. But we have some evidence that that's not really true. I mean, people already know that, but it's important to give you guys the facts. We're going to do that. Before we start, today is Saturday, the 1st of March, which means tomorrow, on the 2nd of March, we are releasing our latest documentary called Groomed, produced and presented by Sammy Woodhouse, featuring Rupert Lowe, Reform UK MP, and the family of Jodie Sheeran, one of the victims of the grooming in Stoke. We're going to be obviously publishing that on 2CTV Plus. If you want to get access to that, you can go on 2c.tv and obviously use the promo code DOC10. You get 10% off annual subscriptions on 2CTV Plus. Do that for obviously it's the final deadline essentially to get your memberships and obviously watch the documentary. Let's talk about the case in the Liverpool Crown Court. This man is Paul Howard. Now, Paul, he was apparently an ex-roofer, and this man was arrested, charged, and then obviously convicted of his crimes, which we're going to get to. By the way, I forgot to mention Happy St. David's Day. All the lovely Welsh people watching this, Happy St. David's Day, because obviously it's more important to focus on the real celebrations and holidays that actually matter to this kingdom rather than Ramadan. Make sure if you're in Wales, obviously celebrating this, have a lot of bacon, have a lot of beer to celebrate that. Now let's get back onto the main topic. Paul Howard, father of two, previously pleaded not guilty, but then changed his plea at the later hearing. So this was already a bit of a red flag anyway, because if you do plead guilty early on, then you can make a deal and you're supposed to get a bit of a softer punishment. But that really depends on the crime. Technically, usually depends on the crime. If you are a permanent threat to society, this is where it becomes a little bit complicated for the courts apparently and our judges. So this guy who has two kids himself eventually pleaded guilty. 28 indecent videos, 28, with 20 of these being in the most serious category A, 6 in category B, and 2 of category C. He also admitted to making 2 category A still images, just like photographs basically. And so you can imagine he's quite obsessed. He should be kept away from everybody, let alone young people, and probably his own kids. But the judge and the court decided what he should receive is not obviously tough punishment or anything to prevent him from doing things like this in the future. He was actually initially sentenced to 16 months in prison, suspended for 2 years. So he's not actually even going to jail. Forget about the 16 months in prison because it's suspended now. 20 rehabilitation days, as if that's going to change anything. A program requirement and 60 hours of unpaid work. He was also given a notification and a 10-year sexual harm prevention order. So are they really thinking if this guy works 60 hours unpaid voluntary work, he's just going to be like, yeah, I really don't see, it's out of my system now. I don't really care about young people and children. Do you really think that by him not actually getting a proper punishment? And again, one thing about when it comes to the judiciary and the prison system, one thing is about punishing people, depending on what the crime is and who you are. And the other thing is about prevention for the future. If somebody is a permanent threat, so that includes, for example, Islamist terrorists, you can't really just say go to prison for 5 years and come back out. Same thing with people who are psychologically obsessed with young people. You can't really say. I mean, firstly, even if this man had gone to jail for, was it 16 months or whatever? Or let's just say 2 years. He's not going to come out and say, well, I'm cured now. Everything is fine. Not only he didn't actually go to jail for that few months, suspended sentence, so he's out. He completely avoided jail. But don't worry, guys. He's promised us he's not going to do it again. He's going to work 60 hours unpaid voluntary work and everything is fine. It's disgusting. There have been so many people reacting to this story because Sammy Woodhouse reported this. Sandy says MAPS slowly but surely being introduced. MAPS obviously stand for minor attracted people. Palms said the justice system are normalizing this behavior, which ultimately will encourage others to do it as they know they will get away with a slap on the wrist. What kind of message is this sending out? Now, it's a very fair point. But again, there are so many issues to discuss because one thing is about our kids. One thing is about the people in the position of power and position of influence. And that includes those who work in our local councils, authorities, the police, many other places, institutions. And that's not really just about young people. It's also about just women in general and sometimes men who get targeted as well. For example, in Greater London, the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, recently rejected and blocked any investigation inquiry into grooming gangs. He is very proud. According to himself, Sadiq Khan says that we don't have that problem here in London. Interesting. What a coincidence. And the Met Police is clean. Best police force in the world. It's not true, is it, Sadiq? Because we have recently discovered yet another case that a mother of a daughter has finally spoken out. This is actually about a police officer working inside the Met. This was actually initially the press release was by the City of London Police about the Metropolitan Police. Mother urges women to speak out as a man sentenced for assaulting a daughter. Now, this is the information which is quite important. The mother has spoken for the first time after her 14-year-old daughter was targeted by former Metropolitan Police Special Constable Hasnain Shahzad. She and her daughter hope that by telling the immeasurable impact that the assault has had on them, it might empower more women and girls to speak out about abuse that they have experienced and bring others to justice. For the record, this man was a former Metropolitan Police Special Constable. So one thing is about the actual people who are walking around. We don't even know who they are. Sometimes they are legal migrants, sometimes they're illegal migrants, sometimes they're native, sometimes they're born here, they're not. And the other issue is those in the positions of power, especially police officers. But again, there's no urgency. The Mayor of London, who's in charge of the policing in London, says there is no problem. There's clearly a systemic issue right now inside the Met Police. For the two counts, Hasnain Shahzad, who is 27, lives in Ilford Lane, in Ilford, was sentenced at the Inner London Crown Court. Guess for how long? Yeah, 6 months. in prison for both offences to run concurrently. Suspended for 18 months. He's been ordered to carry out 120 hours of unpaid work. He was found guilty by a jury on the 6th of January in a London Crown Court. So now, after a couple of months, the mother of the victim has finally spoken out. Suspended sentence for 18 months. This encourages bad behavior. This is condoning bad behavior. It's not even actually tackling the real issue. The mother and her daughter, who was 14, left the store in a local shop in the direction of their hotel. Shahzad, the former police officer, was caught on CCTV approaching the victim on the pavement from behind and touching her. The footage shows that Shahzad was clearly able to avoid the victim but made a beeline for her. The victim alerted her mother about what had happened on the street and in Tesco, their supermarket. The mother said she was distraught and just wanted to go back home rather than the hotel. At this stage, 2 young women approached us to see what had happened. They implored us to go back to the store and see how they could help us. I never got their names, but I'm extremely grateful to them for taking the time to talk to us and suggesting that we went back to Tesco and see the CCTV. Now, they got lucky, the mother and daughter, because clearly in that moment, it's trauma. Like, they're not even thinking. You would not be able to think clearly. Luckily, those 2 other women who approached them had a good conversation, said, well, okay, you first need to calm down. Go back to the supermarket. They have CCTV. Get it from them. This is the only way you can find out who this person was. And then they found out, obviously, he's a police officer anyway. So then they had to file a report and complaint. Now, there's a statement from Detective Constable Sarah Olson of the City of London Police saying, supporting the victim and her family has been at the forefront of our mind since we started investigating the case. Her courage throughout the 2-year process, 2 years, by the way, has been inspirational. This was a deplorable crime carried out by someone who held a position of trust as a Metropolitan Police Special Constable. He had ample opportunity, once presented with clear evidence, to admit to his crimes, but he decided to put his victim through court proceedings. Hasnain Shahzad is convicted, and thanks to the bravery of the victim, he has been brought to justice. Has he? Has he been brought to justice? The punishment that is received, suspended? Really? Is that justice? Can that girl, can that woman and other women right now who will be walking around near this man, can they feel safe? Can we have his picture everywhere if he's going to be walking freely? Is this a safe society? Is this justice? Anyway, Sarah Elsom says it's clear from the evidence taken from his phone that this was not a one-off incident. Shahzad displayed a predatory behavior only 2 days after committing this heinous crime. We urge sexual assault victims to come forward. You will be believed and listened to by a dedicated officer who will support you through the criminal justice system. For the record, we have over 1,000 suspects right now in this category who the investigation is still ongoing apparently, and there has been no progress really. There's a massive backlog in the system as criminals obviously increase in terms of the population, crime go up as well. And there are so many victims out there who are still going through the investigation, waiting for bureaucracy to catch up and everything else, and court system. This is not justice. Nobody is feeling safe. You keep claiming that you will be believed, but real cases and real victims completely get ignored. And obviously some fake cases, you give them media attention when you want to cancel someone. This is the problem that we have. Now, they keep claiming about the justice being served and everything else. This is falling apart. The system is falling apart, and they're just completely pretending everything's absolutely fine. You can wake up in the morning, go to work, go to the pub, go back to sleep. Look, everything seems to be stable. Is it stable, or is it just window dressing? And you're pretending that the system is actually working fine. We need deep reforms in the system, and look at the, as I said, the backlog when it comes to the all the cases that have been reported, and all the cases that, again, these people get away with. Sometimes before they are even convicted, and sometimes even after getting convicted, when they're supposed to be getting their sentences, they get suspended sentence. That's not justice. Of course it's not. Now, let's get some reaction from you guys. Clipper, thank you very much. Says, wood chippers solve all the problems with pedophiles and not only cost less than the prison cells, but offer a great way for victims to start the healing process. Yeah, I mean, somebody needs to provide more support anyway. And one thing is about focusing on the actual victims and survivors, and the other thing is about the fact that there will be many other people in the future who will become victims because you haven't actually dealt with the real issue. These criminals are still out there, like this poor guy and the police officer. Phil says this rising non-privilege is worrying. You would think certain crimes should be such a taboo that the judiciary should not have any tolerance, but they still use the technicality, legal technicalities. Well, you pleaded guilty, so you can just go and do some unpaid work and you'll be fine. How? James says Sadiq Khan can't condemn this because it's going against the teachings of Islam. Sweet Honey says the judges have to be themselves, kids' safety first. And Vinnie King says, what? TQ plus P, pedo. Oh, or is it TQ plus MA, minor attracted? Yeah, but there is a massive campaign and movement to normalize this, and that is one of the biggest issues. Think outside your bubble and ask yourself, why are they getting such lenient sentences? Again, the whole system has been infiltrated, and this is the biggest issue that we're currently facing. It's not been updated for a very long time. Jay says, I will never have my justice for my abuser. Sadly, I've tried many times. It makes zero sense how these guys get away with this. Jail people for free speech, but let them roam, let the criminals go roam the streets stupidly. Yeah, as I said, just one person, but there's so many people even right now watching this, and will be watching this tomorrow and the next day, who will fully understand that there are many other people watching this are finally getting it. That those of you who have been victims, those of you who have been targeted, and those of you who continue to be targeted, by the way, so many people, it's a systemic thing anyway in institutions. And I've had cases previously with friends and those who I knew in certain political parties, in certain other institutions, that they filed complaints, but the person, for example, was popular, that the actual criminal was, for example, popular, or media, by the way, so many in the mainstream media as well, but this person, everybody thinks this person is an angel, or that person has managerial role. Who do I complain to? Who's going to believe this? And the thing is that that's one thing, but even when they get caught, even when they get charged and convicted and sentenced, then this is the punishment. How is it fair? Matt says, Starmer says, we're proud of our free speech, apparently. What a line, Fanny. What a line. Yeah. Prioritize their hate speech laws, apparently. Manusha says, you know what we need? Pride in British history, literature, scientific inventions, even colonialization, insofar as it brought improvements to the third world countries. And also the basic values that those guys had in this kingdom back in the day. Do you really think if someone like Winston Churchill were Prime Minister now, his Justice Secretary would be tolerating this sort of behavior from our judges and our court system? Phil says, useless courts. All pedophiles are protected by the courts. Judges who give these non-sentences must be investigated. How much more? How many more? It's bad. It's very bad. Nicholas says lefties always end up pushing the PDF about it. These guys, they do it all through Europe. It was used in Germany to push kids away from being right wing. It's disgusting stuff. Absolutely wild. Barry says, Maya, are these idiots trying to promote vigilantism, as that's what will happen if this continues? That's the thing. We actually discussed this. Barry makes a good point. Back in the summer, and actually even recently, there were so many cases where the police and the political establishment always say, to be fair, in a civilized democratic society with the rule of law, being a vigilante is not right. You just cause more trouble. But when the establishments are not addressing the real issues, even in fictional world, why do you think Batman was needed to exist? Because the Gotham City was not actually dealing with the actual crimes. Everything was corrupt. Now, that's fictional, but we have it in real life. So when they go around, again, the story that I've said this many times on this channel, my own personal situation a couple of years ago when my Apple AirPods were stolen. I knew exactly where because I could see it on my phone where it is. I could track it. I called the police and I said, I have it on the map. I know which house it's in. And the police said, well, we can't do anything about it. And I said, what if I go knock on the door myself? And they said, no, we will arrest you for knocking on the door because you've been a vigilante. I said, what if I just ask politely? They said, no, you'll be a vigilante. They were very good at doing a crackdown on being a vigilante, right? They said the same thing after Southport. Even the first group of people who came out to protest, to start shouting, saying, you're going to be vigilantes. No, you can't do that. We will do the job. We, as in the police and the courts. I'm like, well, do it then. If you do it, no one will become a vigilante. But if you don't do it, this is going to happen. Obviously, we don't want to promote it, but don't be surprised if it happens. Going back to you guys, we've got Cynthia. Thank you very much, Cynthia, saying that 20 rehabilitation hours to curb a genetic defect. Oh no, they think by going through a few hours of rehab, his brain is going to change now. They're like, I'm suddenly cured. I suddenly don't care about kids. That's not how it works. It's in his brain. He will always be an addict. Yeah, obviously it's not an addiction in terms of you can't get it out of your system, addiction, but it's part of you. This is a national infection, apparently. So you need to start having proper institutions, which is prison system institution, by the way, not like the current mental health clinics that we have. Proper prison, mental prisons, specifically for these cases, because you cannot, when these people are going around doing the same thing over and over again, you have to keep them away, but you have to obviously deal with them in terms of not treatment, in terms of curing them, because you haven't found the cure yet. You can't cure this yet unless you create some sort of a medicine 50 years from now to change people's brains and wiring. But they will always be a threat to society. So the moment you identify one, you catch one, you don't let them out. Unless you're going to do some very radical things to them, which is also against human rights, apparently. Bit of a paradise is what some are calling the UK. With free speech off the table, children won't stand a chance. It's very sad. It is sad. And Hazel says the communists want to cause chaos and unrest in this country. Think who has communist leanings? It's not hard to work out, Hazel says. Another comment says, why were we not allowed to say Christmas at a Christmas market, but London has a start of Ramadan celebration with a taxpayer-funded party? Because London elected Sadiq Khan, so... because the majority of Londoners decided to stay at home and not vote. Because they said, well, voting is pointless. Well, it was a low turnout because everybody stayed at home, and Sadiq Khan didn't even get a majority. He only got, 30%, something like that, of the votes. So he just won by default because everybody stayed at home. Everybody at the same time thought, it doesn't matter, let's just stay at home. Imagine if all the Trump supporters in America had said that. If all the Trump voters had said, let's just not vote, it's a waste of time. Well, Kamala Harris will be president right now. You have to all come out en masse to make it so difficult for the vote to be rigged. Just like what Trump supporters did. Anyway. Kathy says, this vile piece of garbage must never be allowed to be near kids again. But how are they going to police that? This is the whole issue. Because you can give him all these rehabilitation things. You can give him an order. Or well, be careful not to be around schools. The thing is, you can never fully... have the resources to get people from the police, for example, to follow this man around And this is not, again, if it were just one or two, maybe you could do it, right? Maybe you could have a drone following him everywhere he goes. But it's not just one man. We've got thousands of people out there who are freely walking around, and the moment they have an opportunity, they will target. And most of the time, but because it's not easy to go around and, find kids and all that stuff, then the black market gets created. And the problem with this is that it becomes a global issue, because in order to get satisfaction, they're going to have to go with images, pictures and videos, which, by the way, means if those who care about humanity on a global scale, just all humans, obviously put your country first, but you still care about humans. What do you think this black market is? There are criminals who go around finding pictures or taking pictures or making videos. This could be people from anywhere and young people, children from anywhere, in order to satisfy their customers, who are these vile animals. But again, that's just the alternative, the black market. But again, there have been so many cases that it becomes accessible because they see the targets as commodities. Katie says that Labour is a communist and Islamic coalition. Miyamook says, yep, we are hanging on by a thread. The UK will never be the same again. It needs a proper clean-up in the system, which there doesn't seem to be any appetite in the actual political establishment. Joy Scott says, I don't know, but can anyone help? Why can nothing be done about the lying, cheating, corrupt Labour government? I want to come home. The thing is, they only just had the election less than a year ago, so there's a mandate, parliamentary mandate, not a popular mandate, but a parliamentary mandate for the next, maximum 5 years. Mr. Angry says, I don't know who I hate the most, Sad IQ or Ayatollah Stamani. Free Tommy Robinson. Yeah. That reminds me, I was actually earlier today, went to the Heretics podcast hosted by good friend Andrew Gold, and we were actually discussing Tommy on that podcast, which I believe that episode will be coming out this coming week on his YouTube channel, The Heretics. There's a fascinating conversation that we had earlier about the way the system and those at the top of the system don't want to listen to problems, the message, depending on the messenger. So I've been saying this on this channel as well. They bring down the message by bringing down the messenger. So they crushed Tommy Robinson all those years ago because they didn't want the message to get out there. But the message is now out. So now they're forced to talk about it, but they don't want to solve it. So the next step is to get people who want to provide the actual solution. And now people like Rupert Lowe inside Reform UK, he's quite proactive and outspoken. He wants to have solutions using the political system. But is he going to be allowed to do it? Probably not. Sweet Honey also says, give them puberty blockers, castrate them. So the thing is, again, they will use the European Convention of Human Rights to say you can't do that. Which is kind of interesting, by the way, because when it comes to kids, because of the gender lobby, kids who cannot consent, by the way, they are saying, yeah, we should just basically impose puberty blockers on them, right? Even though it gets to a point where it's not reversible that easily. But if you do it to a criminal who has lost his rights because he's a criminal, I mean, this is just one radical example of a solution, right? If give him something, or castrate them or whatever, then they say you can't because it's against human rights. What about the human rights of those kids who can't consent, and you are forcing that? If you actually manage to have that debate with one of these people, they're gonna walk away. They do not debate. They have meltdowns. Toddy Terrence says prison system needs to be changed as well. Luxuries, rights, privileges and possessions should be scrapped and banned from all UK prisons. Treat prisoners like actual prisoners. Basically, the way they are treating Tommy, who's not a criminal, he's a civil offender. If they treated all the actual prisoners like that, as long as they give them food, but in terms of the luxuries, take it away. I mean, again, it should be depending on the categories. We don't have enough prisons anyway. You need to have different prisons for different categories rather than one prison with different wings. It's just completely chaotic. It's too bureaucratic. It doesn't work. Anyway, as I said, we have the next documentary of 2CTV Plus being posted tomorrow evening, Sunday the 2nd of March at 9 p.m. called Groomed, produced and presented by Sammy Woodhouse. You can watch that by going on 2c.tv and obviously subscribing to our 2CTV Plus platform. And if you use the promo code DOC10, you will get 10% off annual subscriptions. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Maya 2C, and we are the media.